Good morning or good evening, wherever you're joining from. We're going to give it just a couple of more minutes as people start to arrive. We'd love to know where you're joining from. Give us a chat. All right, it's just a couple of minutes after the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar, Why and When to Modernize, Finding Your Strategic Window, presented by Innovative E and CPS. My name is Stephanie Taylor, and I'm your moderator for today. We're excited to be joined by our partners at CPS, a two-time Microsoft Partner of the Year winner for project and portfolio management, and a two-time finalist, including last year. A Microsoft Solutions partner with over 30 years expertise, CPS specializes in helping organizations transform the digital workplace. With deep capabilities across modern work, business applications, and security, and a strong focus on adoption and sustainable value. CPS brings a people-first approach to envisioning, implementing, and supporting Microsoft-powered solutions. Innovative E is a 7-time Microsoft Award winner and the 2023 and 2024 Microsoft Partner of the Year for Project and Portfolio Management. We partner with organizations to modernize the entire project and work management ecosystem through a platform-first approach. With deep expertise in AI and Copilot, we deliver sustainable solutions that give your business the agility it needs to thrive and help you become a higher-performing organization with happier people. Your speakers today are from Innovative E, Mike Taylor, and from CPS, Lester Lovelock. Mike Taylor is the founder and CEO of Innovative E. He began his career writing PPM software for NASA and is a recognized visionary in project and work management with deep experience as a PPM practitioner, industry thought leader, published author, and process and application innovator. In 2023, Mike wrote, "The AI project and work management revolution is here. Practical strategies for seizing this moment to become a higher performing organization with happier people." It's available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook format. And as a special thank you, today's webinar attendees will receive a free digital copy. We'll have details at the end of the presentation. Lester Lovelock is head of practice for project and portfolio management at CPS. With over 20 years at the company, Lester brings deep hands-on expertise across the full spectrum of PPM, from on-prem to cloud, integration to optimization. Known for his practical insight and commitment to real-world outcomes, Lester leads CPS's efforts to help organizations reimagine project delivery in the modern workplace. He's based in the UK, just outside of London. Before we dive in, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded. A link to the recording along with the slide deck will be sent to you via email within the next few days. You're free to review the content at your convenience and share it with colleagues who could not attend today's live session. Please use the Q&A feature on the right side panel of this platform to ask questions. We will address as many questions as possible as time permits. If you encounter any technical issues, such as audio or video problems, please use the chat function to notify us, and we'll do our best to assist you promptly. With those housekeeping items out of the way, let's get started. I'm pleased to hand the floor over to Mike and Lester. The virtual stage is yours.
Thanks, Steph. That's great. Really appreciate the introduction. I feel way more important than I actually am, I'm sure.
And likewise.
So thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully this will be a really good, valuable session for you. We're really keen to talk to you about a whole raft of subjects today. In case you didn't know, this is the second webinar in the series of 3. The previous one we ran on July 23rd, which was around, it was around Microsoft's evolution and future vision of PPM. And today we're talking about finding your strategic window and when and why to modernize. The next one will be on the 13th of August, so we'd love you to sign up for that. Please do go ahead and do that. But in today's session, we'll be talking about a few different bullet points. We'll be talking about compelling reasons to move, like what's your why, how do we help you find your why, and how do you find that yourselves, and carrots and sticks. So in that vein, there may be some compelling whys that actually are more stick than carrot. There may be some reasons that you have to move. We'll cover some of those and some of the carrots, some really good reasons to improve and enhance your platform. And then we'll cover off finding your strategic window, kind of helping you to identify good timings to do things and understand what you might want to do in advance.
Yeah, thank you. I can't remember which one of us was going to do this. I'll just jump in.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I think this is for those of you who attended the first one as well. The whole basis of this is basically a white paper that Lester and I did, and I think we released it back in April or May, and it's about modernizing your project and work management state, how, why, and when. And we decided to follow it up with a webinar, and then once we started digging into the content that we had produced, we said, you know what, this is really going to end up being a 3-part series. So therefore the 3-part series. But we do encourage you, if you haven't already downloaded it, you see the different links there from CPS or from Innovative E that you can go access and download that white paper. I encourage you to do so.
So we want to keep this interactive, and in that vein, we've come up with a series of questions, and we'd love to get your take on this. It really helps us with future research. It really helps us to understand what the rest of the market is doing. Whilst Mike and I, between us, can talk to hundreds of customers over a year, forums like this really give you a voice and give us a chance to hear from you. So with that in mind, what are you using today? There'll be a poll appearing in the chat in a moment, and we'd love your feedback on what platforms you're looking at today. How does this work? So is it Project Online or Project Server with a whole bunch of customizations? Is it third-party SaaS? Is it dayoftheweek.com, Smartsheet, ServiceNow, something like that? Are you a little bit more manual doing things with Teams and Excel and email? Or maybe even still working just in a desktop zone, just with Microsoft Project or other tools like that? So the results are already coming in. Interesting that we've got mostly manual at the moment.
Yeah, got a little bit of SaaS popping in there, some Teams, Excel. Yep, not surprised by the Teams, Excel, email, etc. There's been a lot of surveys that said that you're the number one project management tools actually are more collaboration tools, which collaboration is a huge piece of project management, as I think we all know. Somebody put in the chat too. More than 2 of those. Yep. Not surprising.
I've always found Excel to be the biggest competitor to any other PPM platform out there because it just does what you want. You type stuff in a cell and away you go.
Yeah, Microsoft had I don't know if you saw this, Lester, a few years ago. They had a really funny video about doing managing a project in Excel versus doing it in Project, and it was the analogy was watering a plant with a teaspoon. That was Excel. Somebody was running to the faucet and then running over and putting a teaspoon in, running to it again. It's like you can do it, but it's not necessarily easy.
We got some interesting feedback in the chat as well. So teams for project document storage and team management, Teams, Excel, and projects, Google Sheets, Cherwell. Yeah, we've got lots of feedback there. Interestingly, in fact, 0 Project Online customers in the chat today.
Yeah, that is interesting. Would have thought there would have been a little bit, but okay, good to know.
Maybe everyone's heeded our advice already.
That's
Mike,
right.
and
Already
replatform.
migrated or replatform, transitioned. All right. So one of the things that we see, and several people put in there into the chat, we use more than one of these, is there is a lot of disconnection or disaggregation of people, apps, and data in kind of the project work management space. In fact, Lester, you said that, we use these things, these kind of polls and things. A former colleague of mine and I did I think back in 2023, one of these polls, and we had about 400 or 500 folks. So it was a really good sample size. 92% of the people who responded to that particular survey said that they were using multiple work and project management tools, and that aligns with what we see. Industry analysts will tell you that when they've surveyed it, the average enterprise organization uses, I think, 5.7 project or work management tools or collaboration work management tools, depending on how you define them. There's some new terminology kind of floating around out there. Another real big challenge we find is that project managers spend way too much time finding and aggregating data, and this really hampers the ability to make timely and effective decisions, right? You talk about Excel. There's still a huge amount of time that's spent pulling, because you have these different things. You pull data into Excel, you aggregate it, you put it together in fashion that can be then represented, maybe put into a PowerPoint or something like that for a project steering committee meeting, and then put out that way. And you're spending a lot of time what we oftentimes call chasing data, and that's a real challenge for folks. There's actually, this is an interesting point that we've kind of emerged in our thinking over the last few years, is really project management per se is not the work itself, right? What you're doing is you're entering the data about the work into a system. And the reason that becomes more important today in the age of AI is how much of that data could then be automated to be done. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but there's a gap between the work and the systems that govern it. When people are out there developing code, or they're an engineering product or a real estate project or a construction project, whatever you're doing, the work is actually one thing and the digital representation is another. And the more we can close that gap, the better we'll be able to have better data to actually do that management process, right? And then finally, again, you'll hear this over and over, and if you haven't already, I'm sure you will, that AI is really is going to change the world of project and work management, because it's highly human dependent on project managers doing the work, people that are doing the work like status reports and task management and all that kind of stuff. And then all the team members have to provide status and do all these things, potentially time cheating and time capture and all that. So the more AI and automation can do that work, the more you can create higher value outcomes, right? So one of the things that we've seen is, there's been a proliferation of, we like to call it the proliferation of everything. So tools, processes, methodologies. And anybody who's done much in the way of doing, system automation, it's always about people, process, technology. So that's what we're looking at here. There's been a real proliferation of the tools going back all the way into the 1980s from the original Microsoft desktop, where people would start to enter their tasks and Gantt charts and do all that. Over the last 10 or 15 years, you've seen a proliferation of the born in the cloud solutions like Monday.com, Asana, Right. You also have different things that, in Smartsheet, of course. You have on the left side, there's some of the legacy Microsoft technologies that you're familiar with: Project Planner, Project Online, Project Server. And then, of course, the icon at the bottom there is the new Planner Premium. And then you have, tools that manage to different methodologies. And that's another thing that's really over the last probably few decades has really emerged. It's not just about, waterfall or Gantt charts. There's a huge emergence of work management that are being done in Agile and different things. At the end of the day, I think, Lester, we can agree that collaboration is always at the center of whatever methodology you're using. And typically we find that people end up sort of merging those at some point in most initiatives, for at least part of the initiative. So the methodologies are important, but they're not the end all in solving the problem. And then, of course, starting with PMI and other certification organizations and standards bodies, and then curriculum that's been built, whether it's by universities. There's degrees in project management and things like that. There's also a lot of organizations have built their own PMOs and their own PMO training and everything. So there's been a proliferation of all these people, processes, and technologies. However, and that's why the but's there. This study was in 2023 by an article in the HBR. These project success rates, as self-attested by these organizations, this was the Standish group who did this research, are still only providing about a 35% success rate, and that's despite all this proliferation. You go back, a couple decades, that success rate was probably 20 to 30%. So it hasn't moved much, and I think one of the things that really contributes to this, what we hear, is this proliferation. It's while it solves certain problems, it also creates others. And I think I saw in the chat there, somebody said, we keep throwing tools at things and keep buying more tools, and that's absolutely part of the problem. So when you think about how to move forward and modernize, keep this in mind. It's kind of some grounding of how we got to the point where we probably got to in your organization. Okay. So we have another poll question. Lester said we're going to keep you on your toes. So we're going to put this one into the poll here in a second. But what are your reasons for modernization? Select all that apply. So is it low adoption or value realization? At the end of the day, we do know that projects are done to create value for an organization, whatever that value is. So if you're not achieving the results of that project, then you might not be achieving all the value realization. Is there legacy tool dependency? There's all kinds of legacy tools out there. We didn't see anybody with Project Online, but I bet there's a lot of people with Project Desktop. Are you looking for alignment with Microsoft for adoption and extensibility and the modern platform? And there's a lot of talk around how that's really changing the game. Are you looking at cloud app consolidation? Again, we talked about in the last slide, you saw a lot of things pop up. We see a lot of these tools throughout enterprise organizations. Maybe departments buy one tool and the PMO buys another, and then another department buys another, and you have all this stuff. And that's kind of that concept of technical debt. Now you've actually got applications that are out there that do similar functionality, and you may end up even be paying for the same functionality, like task management or document storage or collaboration or things like that. So there's cost efficiencies that could be found. And then of course there's the very fastly evolving world of low code and AI, and organizations that are really looking for this to maximize the use of AI for value realization. So how are we doing on the poll there? I wasn't actually watching. How did that come out there, Lester?
It wasn't on screen, so I'm seeing the results for the first time too. Okay. It's a fairly even spread.
It is. Not on the legacy tool dependency. That's interesting. Consolidation of apps. That's interesting. Yep. That seems to be on the leaderboard right up there with future proofing and low code and AI. Actually, those are tied now. So, all right. Good stuff.
It's a good point in the chat. Options 1 and 4 often go hand in hand. That's absolutely true.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Context switching and things like that. If you have to go from one app to another, it's a completely different experience potentially, and that's inherently inefficient. So, yep. Okay. Well, let's move forward then. Hopefully, we'll save a little bit of time for some of the questions at the end here. All right. So, what is this? We find ourselves, and if you read the white paper, which we encourage you to do, one of the things you'll see a recurring theme in there is this idea of reimagining solutions. So where are we today? And you have an opportunity, a point in time, I think, to really look at reimagining the future of your project and work management, and for all kinds of reasons. One of the things you do when you reimagine is actually ask the question, why are we doing what we're doing? And I'll give you a really good example. We were literally just on a call this week with a customer, and they're going through a merger between organizations. So they need to really look at that from a perspective of they need to merge those systems. We were talking to another customer recently, and it was part of a futures conversation. And we put in the first webinar, and we'll actually review it again, some things that are going on at the platform level, if you're on the Microsoft platform, especially around Project Online and SharePoint, that are changing. And when we were reviewing some of the things that were changing, this customer is like, well, we're going to have to rework this piece because that feature deprecation, it was around, some remote event receivers, not to get too technical, but, and it was around time capture. And after a couple months of continuing to talk about it, they went, you know what? That's really not a requirement anymore. But what's interesting about that is if we hadn't had to force that conversation because technology was changing, would they have continued to do something that was really not providing a lot of value? So, this is an opportunity to relook at doing what you're doing and say, why are we doing it? Is that requirement still there? And all three of these kind of go hand in hand, right? So the other piece of that is, what are the real game-changing opportunities? Are there ways to really move the needle for your PPM? And your solutions to move things forward and achieve higher value and better project outcomes. So those could involve AI and really reducing the work that people are doing, which kind of goes into the third point as well, is how do people work and how do people want to work? The workforce is changing. People want to work in more modern ways. You think about like Microsoft Project that started in the 80s when you sit down and a project manager enters all these things in a Gantt chart. And then there's all this time-phase task management that goes into it. Do people really want to work that way? Do they really want to go update these tasks? Do project managers really want to have to do it? In certain cases, you have to, right? There's certain things. I'm not saying you don't have to do those things, but maybe there's other opportunities to look at ways to modernize the work and to automate some of that. We talked about the data chasing. Is there ways to automate some of that work? Is there ways to use AI to do some of the work? Like one of the things that people are really finding with things like Microsoft Copilot is the meeting minutes, right? You can capture meeting minutes with AI very quickly, and it reduces the time that it takes to do that, and increases the quality of the data because you have better, you're not sitting there scribing it or putting it in OneNote or whatever, and then having to come back and put it all in there. AI is actually helping you do that. So, what are the opportunities to do more work, and the way people want to work, right? Anything to add to that, Lester?
Yeah, I was going to kind of lift the lid a little bit, pull back the covers on what we do as partners. And you've probably had the same experience, Mike, when you receive an RFP or a tender or some sort of procurement document where, for the most part, it's a feature list. People are after a feature list. They're rarely something that will actually make them more efficient. It's,
right.
Tick the box. Does it do this? Does it include time capture? Realistically, where the value is, it's not in the feature list. The value is in, will it change the way your organization works for the better? Will it save people time? Will it save people effort? Will it make you more efficient? Will it save you money?
Right.
But so if anyone's ever thinking about writing a business case for a PPM tool, keep that in mind, please, because it makes our lives a little bit easier, and it makes the responses a little bit more interesting too.
Yeah, it really does. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, right? We're going to talk a little bit about business case and you're finding your window of opportunity here in a minute.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've heard from you. Here's what we think some of the reasons are. This is lifted from the white paper, so please do go ahead and have a bit more of a dig into there to see the real reasons behind these. So just in summary, alignment is one of our first reasons. So empowering all organizations with AI is kind of core to Microsoft's strategy at the moment. And leveraging those tools, leveraging that, if you're in the Microsoft 365 platform, if you're on that journey, should be part of your vision as well. Not to replace people, but kind of to focus them on what matters most. So do away with a lot of the drudgery of the day-to-day work and actually make them more efficient and outcome focused. Maximizing. So if you are in Microsoft 365, you have a whole suite of things available to you, of productivity tools available to you. Like 90% of projects require some form of collaboration, and Teams generally is where that work happens. Since COVID, I've used the C word, I apologize. But since then, we've noticed massively with our customers, things are more remote than ever. And collaboration, which used to happen around a boardroom table or in a meeting room, now it's all done through that platform.
Mm-hmm.
So making those platforms part of your central experience for project management, it kind of reduces that context switching that Mike talked about earlier. And it makes people a bit more efficient when they don't have to shift gears to go and work in a different tool all the time. Enhancing, so business agility through low and no code. Well, PPM solutions often require quite a lot of customizations for specific needs, and actually embracing a Microsoft platform-centric approach in this case comes with the ability to use tools or products like Power Apps. I think we switched a couple of
Yeah,
slides there.
that was an errant errant click on my part. I'm sorry.
Giving the spoilers away
Keep it
already,
real.
Mike.
It's not recorded. This is live.
Can you go back one more?
All right. There we
There
go.
we are. Thank you. So Power Platform, low code, no code approaches actually puts back in the hands of the end user some of the ability to enhance platforms and make those business integrations. Clearly, there's always a place for IT and professional developers, but actually, there's an opportunity to broaden your developer workforce.
Yeah, I would just like to jump in there,
Sure.
Lester. You know, we have, and I'm sure this happens to you all the time. We have customers asking us when we help them develop a solution, well, how much of this can we do on our own? And we're like, you can do almost all of it on your own, right? It almost always starts with things like customizing the reporting. So a lot of our customers have built or are building a lot of expertise in Microsoft Power BI. And so the data is available for them, and they're like, well, can we customize these reports? We're like, sure, if you have a license for it, go do the work. And so it really does start to really make it much more self-service with that kind of approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll come into this a little bit later on with the role of the partner. What we're here for is not necessarily to provide just technical expertise. You've got that in spades in-house already, for the most part. What we're here to do is to get you going really fast. So you may be capability rich on your side, but time poor.
Right.
We're there to speed those things up. That's exactly what partners are for and should be used for, to give you some expert advice, to be a critical friend, and to help you go faster.
Right.
Last one on this slide then is avoiding. So there's some legacy tools around. There's no avoiding that, although clearly based on our poll responses earlier, none of them are project online. But some people, some organizations are still in that platform. I was talking to a customer this morning who I'm not sure if you're aware, there was an announcement recently around a SharePoint on-premise vulnerability that went out.
Oh yeah.
Just happened in the past couple of days. They shut down their entire platform because of that vulnerability, and it sparked a conversation. Like, we really should move you off of this legacy on-premise solution, shouldn't we? Yes. Can we plan that, please? Was the outcome of the call after we got them back up and running and patched. So there are a bunch of tools that are starting to be phased out. Cloud native collaborative solutions are key, and that's been the direction of travel for probably the past 10 years now.
Absolutely.
Moving on. Sorry, you skipped one again, Mike.
I'm sorry. My clicker is just going way too fast.
We should have numbered these slides perhaps to keep us on track.
Well, they actually have numbers. I just wasn't paying attention to it. There's a little 12 in the lower.
So a few more reasons, and I will skip through these a little bit quicker. So scalability, visibility, cost and licensing, and future proofing. Like, we're talking about an enterprise cloud here with Microsoft in terms of scalability. Having all of your data within that one platform, where all of your other organizational data goes, is normally a good thing, right? Because it means you can join stuff up. And it's all under the Microsoft banner of the security features and functions that they offer and provide, whether it's native security or it's enhanced through additional licensing like Purview and so on. It also helps with DLP. So if you're not managing multiple clouds, data loss prevention, you have a rogue employee or someone accidentally sends something out, DLP policies can stop that, and it's much easier to do if you're in a central platform. Visibility wise, a platform centric data set gives you the ability then to look across all of your data sets and to do that near real time reporting if you want to. It also gives you the ability to join data sets together that you may have had difficulty with if you're in multiple clouds. And then cost and licensing. So actually there's normally reasons to consolidate under a single cloud, and it's like Mike said, it's that feature creep of multiple tools, the 5.7 tools per organization, where you're paying for things multiple times. Actually, if you're in a single platform, if you're in a single cloud, you're doing away with a lot of that redundancy, and therefore there's a cost and time saving and a license saving that goes along with that, as well as the stuff that you don't really recognize back office, which is things like IT teams being able to support this and not have to understand the complete it's a very hard word to say late on a Monday, proliferation of tools across multiple systems. And then finally, future proofing. So everyone's aware of the stuff that comes out from Microsoft on a very regular basis. As partners, we're kind of at the fast end of the fire hose, trying to absorb it all and pass it on to our customers. The stuff that really matters and makes a difference to you guys. But it is constant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing, right? There is constant innovation and enhancement from Microsoft, and being in that platform means you're going to be able to leverage it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now I'm ready to go forward, right?
Yes, please. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these tools. I will pick out a few key points, though. So these are the reasons why we hear from our customers why you might want to look at work management or PPM management. So it may be that you're looking at new tools or new platforms because your current organization has too many, or it has too few, or they're not fit for purpose, or they're very hard to integrate. I mean, we saw some stuff in the chat earlier about people trying to do Google Sheets. I'm sure you don't have Google email as well, otherwise you probably wouldn't be on this this call talking about Microsoft platforms.
Right.
Decision making. Sometimes it's hard to understand what your resource capacity and demand looks like across an organization. You might want to start centralizing your data to make those decisions. You may find it hard to prioritize your pipeline, or your reporting where you're doing all of that is very manual, and someone has to crank a handle every month to produce a PowerPoint deck, and it's moving diamonds to the right by a centimeter every month is a thankless task. This is why people invest in PPM tools. Or your reporting is just out of date the minute it's done. Back to that, moving the diamond right to the month once a month. It's not great because it's out of date as soon as you've done it. Same with things like planning. So we've touched on tools, we've touched on people and processes. Planning might be poor. You might want to enhance that through the implementation of a tool. Maybe siloed, it may be done piecemeal, it might not be done collaboratively with other teams, or in the grander picture of your resource profiles. And similarly, dependencies.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lester, but the planning and what you're just talking about with the reporting being out of date and those kind of data issues go hand in hand, right? It's hard to do good planning if you really don't know. It's hard to manage day to day if you don't know where you are, if your report's out of date and you're not managing off good information. But it's hard to plan if your portfolio of projects, you can't rely on the data, right?
Yeah, decision making is hard if you don't have the right information to your fingertips straight away.
Right.
And this is the point of implementing tools like this, where you have a platform and you have automated reporting, and the people are involved in that process understand it end to end. They're able to make those inputs on a regular basis. So I think someone in the chat mentioned earlier, processes are often the last thing to be brought up.
Yeah, right.
It's as important as selecting a tool, making sure that things are well embedded.
Yep.
Maybe that actually controlling your projects is hard. So you don't have a method perhaps of saying how far through are we. Most organizations that we work with start just by having a project manager updating things. They might eventually get to the team members saying, I've done this amount of effort, but it's going to take me this additional amount that we hadn't planned for previously. It's a fairly mature process to do that, and it's hard. Again, we see it in requirements all the time. We need to track and manage team member progress. Rarely are they ready for it. Same for things like tracking costs, being able to do cost forecasting and recognize where you are, what's your estimate at completion, and being able to recognize that maybe you need a budgetary uplift, or there'll be a change coming or a risk coming, and you haven't maybe budgeted for that in your risk profile or your risk budgets. Lots of reasons to track costs in tools, and the same for RAID. Again, you might have a list of stuff in Excel, but you might not be able to join all of that up across everything and see what is our risk profile as a portfolio. What do we have in terms of appetite to accept these risks or to treat them? How much risk budget do we have, and how much have we spent of that? And then finally, around the governance, I mentioned it earlier. It's only as good as the last time someone updated the data. So if people are doing it poorly, or they're not doing it at all, or they're doing it out of sequence with the rest of the organization, the data is invalid. or maybe they're not even following the processes. So it could be that they skip stage gates. They just move themselves along. I don't need to ask for a budget. What do you want about? I've got CFO sign off. I just go.
Right.
So you can automate and govern your projects through tools. There's lots of reasons to do this stuff.
Absolutely. All right. So we go to our last poll question, but do stick around to the end. We've got some good Q&A coming up and some other things. So what is holding you back from modernization? What are your biggest blockers? And again, this is like Lester said, we'd love to hear from folks and get feedback on what's going on. So, is it that you don't feel ready or mature enough? Is you're just not ready to modernize, not sure where to start maybe? Is it that you don't know the cost benefit? This gets back to what you said a minute ago, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, Lester. It's a business case. How do you build a case to do this? And that goes hand in hand with the other one, which is number 3, which is getting buy-in from leadership. Number 4, existing complexity. It's so we've got all these customizations and complexity, and kind of goes back to where to start. So how do we do all this? Or maybe it's just too overwhelming, or feels like it's going to be too costly and time consuming, or disruptive to the business to do that, right? And then something else. So it could be it could be a plethora of other reasons that you do that. So how are the results looking coming in? Existing customizations. Not surprised about that.
Clear front runner there. And I don't know about you, Mike, but we're seeing it in our conversations with customers at the minute, where they might have had a platform that they've had in place for 10 years in some cases, and they've built up a weight of technical legacy to it, where it's
Right.
so core to the rest of their business. It's got roots everywhere, and unpicking that is hard. So we've had conversations across the past 12-18 months where, how long can we just kick this can down the road so we don't have to make a decision for? I even had one last week. I'm retiring in 6 months. Can we just put the decision off until I'm gone?
Make it somebody else's problem.
I'm sure she said it tongue in cheek, but
yeah, a lot of truth said in jest, right? So yeah, that's definitely far and above. It's over half, 55% now of the respondents have said existing customizations and complexity, and that is certainly that's where the opportunity comes, but also the challenge. And there's no sugarcoating it. It is not for the faint of heart to do that. There are ways to do it to make it less disruptive to the organization, and there are ways to really look at both the benefit and the of the cost of not doing it. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides. So
we'll also talk about approaches to minimizing impact in the next webinar. So
yes,
keep your eyes peeled for that one.
Yeah, that one's really where we're going to bring it all together, right? And how you actually do it, and bring some real world examples in as well. So in this one, this kind of gets to the when. So the why and when start to overlap a little bit, but so you see the little carrot and stick analogy there in the bottom. So what are the carrots? What are the things that are the reasons why you would want to move to something? Because people make change for 2 reasons. You're either moving towards something or away from something, or both, right? You're moving towards the promise of a better way to do things. So what are the process improvements that can be made? What are the leveraging of new tech capabilities? You talk about AI, you talk about low code, no code. Moving past legacy ways of working. Like I said earlier, we were talking to that customer, and they, when we started to do a deeper dive into a process and how it was automated, they said that process isn't even really needed anymore. So really a way to capitalize on eliminating ways of working that didn't work, and maybe start to work in ways that work much better and lead to better success, right? Then, of course, we have the sticks, and you mentioned this before, Lester. The technical debt. You sometimes will have a lot of overlapping technologies, and that's a multi-layered problem, right? It's not just that the users who are using the systems have to figure out the context switching, or that there's more cost associated with having duplicate capabilities, but also, as you mentioned, this is a good one. A lot of times, the business users don't think about this. If you're in the PMO or something, and you're buying different technologies, you might be putting more on your IT staff to have to figure out how to support those different technologies. So the more of those they have that are incongruent and different in the way that they work, the more cost and slowness of change kind of comes in with those technologies as well. And that goes into the last one right there. Lester, you were talking about this the other day. You know, the availability of, and actually, I think you mentioned it earlier in this one as well, the availability of Microsoft-centric people with skills around the Power Platform, even emerging AI, Copilot, Power Platform, are much less scarce than some of these niche SaaS applications that are out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think we talked previously about the banking industry is holding that up as an example, and people out there still learning COBOL because they
That's
can
right.
command a ridiculous day rate because they're so in demand and so niche. Like, you
Right.
don't want to have to pay that ridiculous day rate for people to come and work on your platform. You should be looking at platforms that are widely available and widely supported.
But even so, you've got that's the old piece, but on the front other side of that slash, the niche SaaS, you've got some of the newer things that are out there, the day of the week.com, right? The smart sheets, whatever. And if you're going to be doing, I was on a call with a customer the other day, and they were talking about how they have a consultant that's I think it was a Monday consultant, because they didn't have that capability in house. And as you mentioned earlier, Lester, more and more people are getting the most prevalent capabilities. If you're a Microsoft centric organization, is going to have capabilities around the Microsoft tool set, right? So you're going to not have to necessarily go out and get scarce resources or very niche resources to work on those things. Then there's the strategic window, and I think we're gonna dive into that a little bit. But I think I saw somebody mention in this one, and we definitely hear this question all the time: is how do I get leadership bought in? How do I find a way to attach needing to modernize my PPM to potentially organizational circumstances or needs, right? So that is always a way to look at it, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. So how do you build the case? So other compelling initiatives to align with, and unless you chime in here, I know you see this kind of thing all the time. We had a customer the other day that came to us, and it was an M&A. I mentioned it earlier as well. Same customer actually. They're compelled to make a change, right? The two organizations are merging. They're compelled to pick a technology and go with it, because the executives, CTO, CIO, whoever is saying we're not going to continue to do these 5 or 6 different things, right? We're gonna align these. There's time sensitive initiatives. Maybe there's things that are going on that the organization has to react to. Maybe there's business things that are going on. There's a lot of challenges that are going on. We have some of our businesses, our customers that are reacting to business environment challenges that are because of political things that are happening, but they have to react to them. So, it makes a very time sensitive initiative to maintain their business trajectory. Easy for me to say. Leveraging organizational pain points. Maybe there's certain things, time to delivery, lower delivery of value, things like that. Maybe there's things that are organizationally being driven that you want to tie into from, we can help. If we modernize our PPM, we can do a better job of supporting those. Capitalizing on budget capability and availability, and sometimes it goes hand in hand with another one that's coming up in a minute, which is key initiatives, or maybe that's the second one. But if there's budget for those initiatives, there may be budget to help you with your PPM piece as well. And sometimes that happens at a variety of levels. It's not just budget for potentially to get help with a partner, but also if we've seen it where organizations will start on a kind of a wave of transition from maybe different technologies or disaggregated technologies into the Microsoft platform. And then it kind of hits critical mass. And, again, top down, they say, all right, everything's going to be on the platform and we're going to create a certain amount of budget to go do this. So that's a good time to look at that. Market or regulatory changes goes hand in hand with time sensitive initiatives. Sometimes, Lester, you guys deal a lot with regulated industries. In fact, I think some of your case studies that you guys have talked about recently are in regulated industries. I've seen a lot of the great work you guys are doing in the public sector there in the UK. But there are changes that happen that drive a need for the organization to make a change. And if your PPM solution, that may be a good opportunity to modernize to respond to those and be more agile in the future.
We've had a great example over here in the UK, and I hate saying it because I wasn't a backer, but we had Brexit, and we've also had things like GDPR regulations come in as a result of all of that, led to a huge wave of transformation projects over here in the UK, and actually PPM became a big thing to try and manage those transformation projects.
Yep.
So it was a good strategic window for a lot of organizations over here to try and do things better because of a regulatory change that came about that was forced upon them.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and we've seen things like that. I've worked on a bunch of those kinds of initiatives over the years. You'd also mentioned IT rationalization, tool consolidation, Lester. I think that's something that we're seeing a lot more of, this kind of digital transformation window. A lot of our kind of journey that companies have been on, organizations have been on, has probably been going on for 8 or 10 years now. But as they become more mature in that consolidation, or in moving everything to a digital platform, now's the opportunity that leadership starts looking at and going, okay, we still have a lot of tools that now we're all in the cloud, and we're all doing a better job of making the business value out of getting out of the data centers and doing all that kind of stuff. What do we need to start looking at as far as rationalization? So it becomes like a future or a next phase of things to look at. And PPM can be part of that as well. If you're on some of those older tools that you mentioned just a minute ago, Lester, one of your customers is still on desktop, or I'm sorry, on server, and maybe that's been put into a data center in a virtual, maybe it hasn't, but it's still legacy, right? And now it's a good opportunity. I think you guys use the opportunity to bring up to your customer. Maybe you want to update that so you're not still having to do these physical server patches for security and things like that. Executive leadership and new priorities. We actually see this. I'm sure Lester, you guys find this as well. We actually have a customer that has, they are on their third organization in the past 5 or 6 years, where they've reached out to us because they have a perspective on how they want to implement their PPM solutions. And that happens a lot, right? You get a new CIO, CTO, chief innovation officer, and they have a way to do things. Maybe they're bringing in the Microsoft platform, or maybe they've got perspectives around AI or things like that. And then those priorities become something that the PMO or the PPM solutions can support. So there's ways to leverage that as well.
I suppose one of the other things that might be missing from here is, like, actually when date-wise you might want to do some of these things. So we have a whole bunch of education-based customers over here, and universities, for example, have key windows when they can implement changes because
Right.
there are no students around. So they have to develop business cases and therefore funnel as much change as they can into that small window. So actually trying to get an initiative with enough momentum in it to make that window is hard sometimes.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And the next point that's there is the review of the key dates, which just is sort of a reminder to go back to this next slide, which is kind of where things are. We'll go through this quickly. We reviewed it in the last one. We're going to review it in the next one as well, because it is really important for those who are on the Microsoft platform. So for those who are familiar with Project for the Web, which is Microsoft's new version of, on the modern platform, that was what they called it. They're actually officially retiring it. It's more of a name change than it is an actual retirement. Most of the feature functionality is going to be now going forward in what is being called Planner Premium. But that's a very close date, right? That's only 8 or 9 days away. So if you're not aware of that and you need anything, feel free to reach out to Lester or I, and we can help you with that to see if it might impact you. The rest of the dates are a little further out. In April of 26, SharePoint workflows are going away. So if you're relying on those for a solution, that's important. Even if it's not necessarily a Project Online solution that uses SharePoint workflows, we have a lot of customers who built their own workflows in support of a project or work management solution. The remote event receivers, nobody here said they were worried about Project Online, so I won't go into that too much. But if you are pulling data through the remote event receivers, those are going away, and we have some enterprise customers with a lot of customizations that's going to be a challenge for us. So we've got to work around that. Other SharePoint add-ins are slid for retirement. This causes a variety of different issues, and there's even things around the secrets, they call them secrets, which are ways that the add-ons can have systems access and things like that. Those are going back, and there's some of that even reaches back into how far out you can renew a secret and things like that. So if you need specialized assistance on that, again, a partner or Microsoft would be a good place to go. Then in July of next year, Project Server 2016 and 19, they're going to be out of support, as they products often do. and then you've got deprecation for SharePoint alerts, and then next August, project for the web will finalize its transition to Planner. So any remaining feature functionality will transition to Planner Premium. And then, of course, they're going to retire one of the early features of Planner, project and roadmap features that actually worked with project and project for the web, and they're going to retire that as well.
And DevOps.
And DevOps, yep. So you mentioned when suggested timelines. You had mentioned, Lester, you have customers who have strategic windows to work within, like education, possibly summer holiday or things like that. It's a good time to get things done. In terms of just overall for our customers, I know Lester and I have talked about this a lot. It takes a long time for many customers to initiate these kind of to build these kind of projects to go do a modernization. And so, for those who were reliant on some of the legacy underlying things we talked about, this is kind of where this timeline came from, is saying, you really need to start now this year and begin a project during this summer, because it typically will take customers a while to get the the support behind it and whatever they need to do resource wise. If it's going to be a spend, it's going to be a license change, it's going to be a partner to help out with, build it, have an adjustment period. In this case, we're talking about migrating or transitioning off Project Online, stop using those, and then completely get off of Project Online if that's the legacy transition that you're making. Again, nobody said that they were on it for this call, so we'll move past that quickly. So I've been talking for a minute. Lester, do you want to talk just real quickly? And then in the next webinar, we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into some of these customer testimonials. But we have customers that are already on this journey in varying different areas or places on the journey of full modernization, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Steph's putting some links in the chat, so you can go ahead and click on those if you want to see a little bit more. But to give you a bit of a flavor, CBS in the UK, we work across every sector. We don't just work in a PPM space, we work across Microsoft 365, as well as adoption and change management, which kind of underpins everything that we do with organizations. What's the point in implementing systems and solutions if it's not going to be adopted and used?
Exactly.
So some good examples that we've pulled up here, a couple of very recognizable names if you're in the UK. If you're not, I'm sure you know what a Ministry of Justice might do. Some really good case studies and examples here to dive in and see how larger organizations perhaps are adopting and using Microsoft platforms and Microsoft PPM solutions. So for MOJ, for example, we turned basic planning into something that was an end-to-end process across the organization. It enabled any end user to log a request for any piece of work within the platform, and for that to be triaged and routed accordingly to the right teams. It also gave it risk profiles and risk budgets, and made sure that the request was being assigned the right level of governance based on the type of request that it was. So, really simple things from, I need a new laptop, my screen's broken, that would get routed to their service management function, all the way through to, I want to implement a new platform for managing prisons across the UK. All of those requests went through the right size process, and we helped them do that by having a pipeline system and a pipeline process that managed and triaged that through to the delivery in Microsoft Planner. So a really compelling case study there for the MOJ. Network Rail is kind of similar, except this was an example of Network Rail as an organization are quite interesting in that they don't have a centralized top-down governance. They've devolved all of the management of the business of the organization into individual routes and regions across the UK. So for example, how they work in Wales and Western routes and region might be completely different to how they work in Central England, for example. So we took an approach with them where we built a core platform, a core configuration that contained all of the requirements that top level management would want to see reported together. And then that became our core rollout. And then that solution got deployed across the routes and regions. I think we're up to 8 now, and then localized. So top network rail HQ could have that consolidated view of what's going on across routes and regions, but everyone got to work in their own specific unique flavors as well. So again, a really cool case study there and a very cool project to work on.
Very nice. And again, we'll go into a little bit more detail on the next one as well. On the two that we have there, Carolina's Telco is actually from a couple years ago, but it's representative of, it's really emerging two kinds of customers who are really coming to us with a modernization approach. One is that they don't have much, they don't have a lot of legacy like Project Online, which is apparently like a lot of folks on this call. And they're coming to us and they're really trying to get established and use the platform and certain tools to be able to say, all right, this is a starting point, a foundation to go forward. And they were kind of in that area. So they used our product and what we built to have governance so that everything was contained within teams. So everyone would start up their projects and it would be exactly the same. And, it eliminated all that context switching and aggregated things. And they may have been using, different tools like Excel and Project on Desktop and things like that and pulled it all into one. Southern Hampshire University is on the other end of the spectrum. They've been, they're a larger organization. I think they have a couple hundred project managers maybe. And they traditionally were using things like Project Online and Project. They started using Project for the Web, now Planner. They're on that migration journey and they're working on ways to fully automate and fully leverage the new platform capabilities. And so they're very kind of a avant-garde organization and thinking forward, but they still have some of the stuff we talked about, some of those challenges of being, mired in some of the complexity of existing customizations and things out there. So, we're helping them through that process, but they're definitely in that journey. So kind of wanted to highlight two different types of customers that come in there. So we're almost ready to wrap it up. Please join us in our next webinar, transitioning, moving from legacy to modern platform. As we kind of hinted, we're going to go into some of the transition approaches, key steps, challenge areas. We're going to talk a little bit more, and again, please do download the white paper, but what is Microsoft's role? What are partner roles? What are the types of partners? We'll break that down a little bit, because there's a lot of great partners out there doing a lot of good work. Some are more focused on adoption and change management. Some have IP or applications that they've built. Both CPS and Innovative are in that category. And we'll go more into the real world success stories and how customers have really gone into what their journey is towards modernization. Again, thank you. The book is available, I think, until midnight. There's the QR code, all kinds of contact information. Feel free to contact us. And I think we have 3 minutes here. If there's any questions, I hadn't even had a chance to look at the questions or the chat to see if anyone's asking questions.
Not a huge amount of questions in the Q&A. So PDUs, thanks Tad for answering that one. So yeah, you can go self-report.
Yeah, we can actually send we've got a couple steps within that. One of our partners gave us this. Here's exactly the steps you go to self-report. So it's like screenshots, so we can send that to you. Any other questions? I don't see anything else in the Q&A right now. We'll give it another minute, see if anybody has any other questions or comments. Anything you'd like to add, Lester?
No, just add my thanks for taking the time with us, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one as well, where we'll dive into the nuts and bolts of how do you do this? What are the things you should consider if you're thinking about replatforming? Yeah,
absolutely. And if you do have any questions in the meantime, feel free. Here's all the contact information. Reach back out to us, and we'll be happy to connect. It's always great talking to folks about their challenges and any ways we can help to move you forward with your modernization journey. So again, thanks again, and hope to see folks on the next one. Thanks, Lester.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you both, Mike and Lester, and thank all of you for your participation in today's webinar. We do hope you've found it valuable and informative. If you do have any questions, please feel free, or any comments, reach out to either Mike or Lester. Their information is on the screen, or you can email Innovative at info@innovative.com, and we'll get back to you. We just might use your question or comment in an upcoming webinar or blog post. Also, keep an eye on your inbox for the recording of today's session and the slide deck and additional resources. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.